the products. Acceptance. I use the service. Excellent.
So, welcome and good evening. Welcome to Chaos Wargaming. This is Future Sight, and we're on. Me and Evan are live with some of the winners of the Walsall Warmasters inaugural team event at Asguard Games in Walsall. So we've got Chris and Jamie, and the third member is just he's still hungover from drinking too much from the Dreamer pot. But
so for those that weren't paying attention, inaugural basically means, hey, look, we've promised to do more of these, so someone better hold us to it.
I assume so, but they keep on doing different formats there, right? But there's another one that's already sold out, right? That went up this week, just a Steam rather than a team event. And you haven't seen us talk about it before. Like it's such a cool venue. It's very quickly become like my favorite venue. It's close enough that we can drive for like just a one dayer there, and the food's fantastic. Like the atmosphere is really good. Like loads of space. It's really chilled. And like I don't think there's anything bad about it really. You go in and there's always a smell of the freshly made donuts that the guys making like on site straight away. So
that's cool.
You cannot argue with that sort of thing.
I keep trying to harass him to run a 2-day event so I can justify the trip.
Yeah.
It is on the cards.
It is on the cards. Oh, that's a good thing to know.
Good.
Because there's definitely enough room. Like essentially to paint the picture of the venue, right? You go in and it's like a board game cafe as you walk in, a really nice board game cafe, and a bar, and then a kitchen. So they're wheeling out like basically like sort of like bistro pub type sort of level of food, I'd say. You know, like really nice, tasty sort of menu.
Yeah.
Really good stuff. And then you've got a variety of drinks. And then you've got the gaming store itself. That's like all open plan. We can go and pick up a bit of everything. It's like proper independent gaming store. So it's like not like you're just going to get a wall-to-wall Warhammer or vice versa. It's here's the role-playing games. Here's all these board games. Here's paints and like tanks, and it's really like good balance. And then you go out the back into essentially this like huge like open warehouse space, which is like the gaming area, right? This is your local, isn't it? For both of you.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Obviously, it's a community we've been trying to build up, and it's gone quite well.
We are. Go on, Chris. Go on.
No, I was just going to say regarding the event as well that we're hoping to open another pod up if we get enough interest.
Yes.
So get yourself on that reserve list.
Yeah, so. I saw Ben Thomas putting up something about don't let these baddies in. It's like just a bunch of villains. I couldn't resist but put a Dick Dastardly like a gif as their response. Twirling his. So thanks for coming on, guys. If you want to introduce yourself, so Chris, this is Chris Clare. You're playing Retribution at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Or you were at the event. So go give us a bit of an introduction, if you would, and then tell us about your Warmachine sort of history and where you are at the moment.
Yeah. So.
And would you mind going over your lists at the same time? If that's right.
Okay, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So I've been playing Warmachine since basically the end of Mark II. I was one of those people who made the mistake of buying one into one of the theme lists just before Mark III got announced, so Raven and the Nine Voices just before.
Wow.
3 units of Strike Force before they got made FA2. I've largely been a Retribution player for my whole Warmachine career. I have dabbled with other factions, but it tends to last for about 3 months and then I sell it all on and go back to Retribution. I'm based out of Stafford and kind of the Midlands. I obviously play mainly at Asguard. Started being competitive in the last 3 to 4 years, I'd say. So I went to WTC with the UN team in 2019.
Of course you did, yeah.
Can
I just interrupt quickly because I know a lot of people understand how the UN team works. Do you want to just quickly cover what it is? Because obviously it's people that will be applying for WTC for their country and will miss the spot and be told like, oh, you were nearly there, or get a reserve and not really want to commit to it. So do you want to quickly cover that?
Yes. So as you say, Dan, the situation I had in that year is I'd had a really good year kind of games, but I was having a child that year, early on in the year, so I didn't want to commit to going abroad. And obviously, you don't know the situations. So the UN team is basically, there was a drop, and they decided to make a UN team and basically just asked, was there any players that were interested at WTC level that wanted to apply? And basically, I think we had 2 Germans, a Polish player, Ukrainian, not Polish. So it was 2 Germans, a Ukrainian, a French, and myself.
Yeah.
So basically, it was just a team of mercenaries, as it were. So yeah, I don't know if there's going to be any this year. But it was interesting because especially the conversations we were having before the tournament of like how the different metas were and getting an insight on that. So if there is one, I'd highly recommend it for anybody that wants a different.
That's quite fascinating. So you guys had to like out of nowhere quickly decide on a captaincy and how your ways of working would be?
Yeah, so it was quite a weird one because it was quite early on in the process where one of the teams dropped out. So we went through the exact same system of list lock and everything like that. We weren't allowed any kind of changes to that.
There's no special dispensation or anything.
Okay.
So it was a really good experience, and obviously it's almost like I've had hoping to be on the WTC team this year. So it was almost kind of a good kind of practice run, as it were, with a little bit less pressure. But still getting an understanding of how the system works, etc. Yeah,
it's probably like shy of going to the Solar Masters, which we're not sure if that's on at the moment. We're waiting to find out from WTC committee whether they're running Solar Masters. But shy of that, it's like the best thing that can go on your Washington CV, right? To go next year. I want to apply for England, and you're like, well, I've already been there. I've experienced it firsthand. You don't need to teach me anything. Let's just go. Just hit it. So
it's a good place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I jumped onto Retribution maybe like a couple of weeks after you then. So like one of the locals up in Sheffield has been trying to sell it to me for ages, and then I think I eventually bought it off him the week of the Mark III release, like the start of the week. But it was fine. Like he was very much just getting rid of it. It was going to go in his shed forever otherwise. I stayed on Rep for like the first year and a half, I think. So I promised I'd never go back to a faction that I played and sold. Let's swiftly move on from there because I've now got.
You lied to yourself. You lied.
It's too tempting. I do love a bit of elves. What can I say? So cool. Thanks, Chris. And then JB, do you want to give us a rundown, fella?
Yeah, sure. So I've been. This is coming to my 10th year playing Warmachine now, so I'm a bit longer in the tooth. I started playing in 2012 up in York with people like Brett Welke, Jim Gradwell, Jake Wilstrop, Paul North. So some really good high quality players, and I was basically all in on Legion for about 5 years, I think. Those who were around playing at the time may remember I used to run a blog called How to Train Your Dragonspawn, which occasionally reappears when I find time.
I have seen that, yes.
Yeah. It's some people. It's weird when people sort of remember after it and that, but yeah. So I got really big into Warmachine, big into Legion of Everblight. Had a great time. Probably a highlight. I was privileged to be able to go on the WTC in 2016. I was one of the first England Knights because that was the first year that we got to field a third team, and I will claim credit for the name quietly on the side. Really enjoyed it. It was a weird year to go to the WTC because it was the same year that Mark III dropped. So we all qualified for that based off of, right, I'm going to be playing Veil 1, Veil 2, Lilith 2. That is the meta. All of a sudden, I remember when the leak of the Mark III cards came out, and everyone had this PDF file going through on their phones trying to work out what on earth is this war set going to be. Yeah, it was you had no idea what the rule book was. I think it was French, but either way, it was super weird time to do it. But yeah, really enjoyed that. I then took a year out with work, came back in 2017, wanted to switch into something else, so I started playing Protector of Menoth. Played that for about 2 or 3 years, and then switched on to Minions since, which is steadily becoming more and more trolls. and now I'm sort of bouncing between. It was between Protectorate and Minions and Legion. Since the last dynamic update, I've kind of dropped Protectorate off, so it's mostly Minions, occasionally Legion at the moment for me.
I do like the fact that Minion players don't get credit for being Minions. They're called Trolls now, and Troll players don't get credit for playing Trolls either. They're called Minions.
Yeah, and you just rock up at the event, right, and you go, do I want best in faction? Count the number of people who've put which faction on their actual sheet. Because you've basically got the same pool of stuff, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah, it's alright. That's cool. And yeah, obviously, yeah, I used to read your blog. I think I did mine. I mean, you both did a Legion blog at the same time, didn't you? Because I did Reign of Fire. Because I took my inspiration off the dragons burning London. So I had a picture of Big Ben and some archangels and thrones of Everblight flying through the sky as my like background. I
remember that.
I've definitely still got a soft spot for Legion, but I've always remained strong enough to not go back. Only recently I've finally broken my.
But the models are so pretty. How do you do that? The models are so pretty.
But also, like, just everything is fucking awkward in Legion. Right? You can't stick things next to each other. You can't put them in a case next to each other. I remember.
I won't lie. The wings are a fucking mixed bag. That's for sure.
I remember when Haley 3 was a nightmare. So to WTC, I took a Veil 2 Double Thrones. It was one of my pairing, which was like one of our team's answer to Haley. It was basically two thrones and then a million sprays to just eat through the army. But I literally went for the the quite popular chop your throne in half conversion option. Because I had to take, I would have had to take an entire extra bag or case to WTC if I hadn't. So you just chop it in half and come out of the ground instead and buy an extra platform. So basically just that's vaguely the same. Now tentacles coming out of the floor instead.
Real men go the Ben Hampshire route of his old witch and just make it triple the heights for no good reason.
And have to take a fucking shipping container wherever you go to an event. Obviously, yeah. I don't have the luxury there. But cool. Well, thanks, guys. So thank you very much for coming on. Thanks for going through a bit of what you do and stuff. Obviously, we've talked about the club and the events, and you've got like a bit like a cycle, really, haven't you, of who's running them? So it's going between like Chris and Barry. I think Jacob's running stuff as well, isn't he? So it's nice that it basically means that no one person like up where I am, it's all on Simon running Sherwood. We're down with you, like everyone gets a chance to play their events as well. That's really cool for you. And we're gonna have to. I think Simon's just got a new job where we're gonna have to start like maybe considering giving him some or forcing him to get some actual help. But yeah, I can't complain. We've got like a quarterly guaranteed event up here at the moment. It's drawing a good crowd too. So I think the meta is like really seems to be having a bit of resurgence. I know like some places not so much, but some places definitely seem to be pulling a lot of old players back, and maybe new players aren't like as prevalent. Like we've had a couple of new players coming in and out. We've had a lot of old players from like Mark 1 and 2 come back and have just carried on playing. That's pretty cool.
I've got to give a shout out to old Dan Pedrick, by the way, because I've been quite, I've been quite bleak about the London meta. It's just a slow return. But he's managed to get a Brawl Machine event going this weekend. That's got 10 players.
Brawl Machine,
so well done, Dan. Looks like London's coming back.
It'd be really interesting to see if it's newer players, because obviously Brawl Machine's like the ideal like intro.
It's a bit of a mix. We've got more returning players, and we're getting a couple players coming up from Brighton.
Yeah, that's cool. So before we go any further, who was your third person? Do you want introduce him in his absence?
And don't feel the need to be honest either. Just go nuts.
So our third member was Ryan Longthorpe, bringing his Grymkin along. We were going to bring our team back from the Sherwood team event, which was Chris Dacre, but because he'd selfishly decided to go and actually organise the event rather than play in it, I wouldn't call it an upgrade or a downgrade. We simply exchanged him one for one with Ryan.
Diplomatic there. Especially considering he's running the event in like a couple of weeks' time as well, so you can't really. That's cool. That's cool. So what was your like thought about what you were playing? Was it very much these are your factions, and just make it work with a pair, or was there a bit more thought into? Because obviously, Longy's only just come back to the game and is loving Grymkin or loving Dreamer, but what was the thought, guys? 'Cause you put some proper practice, some thought into like prep work, right?
Yeah, so Ryan was always only ever going to play Grymkin. Me and Jamie originally were playing Legion and Scorn for the tournament.
All right.
But I kind of came to the decision that with a lot of the meta where it was at the time, having Assyria in a pair was a positive thing, effectively, with Blinding Light and things like that.
Yeah.
So obviously, being a rep player for I don't know how many years it is now, 6-7 years, I've played hundreds of games with Assyria. There's always something I can pick up and play fairly confidently. And then obviously Gorshade 4 is very strongly in the meta now as well. So it was kind of a bit of a no-brainer on my pair.
Yeah.
And then I think after that, kind of Jamie kind of decided to go back to minions because he was enjoying it more effectively. I'll let Jamie talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. I think, just like I said, Ryan was very clear. He's the kind of guy who's like, I'm going to play 200 games of Dreamer and I'm still going to have a great time. Whereas I'm like, I'm going to play maybe a full game of one faction before I change. He knew he was very locked down. And again, like when we're looking at our lists, when we look at Scorn, Chris was really happy with his Xerxes 1 lists, all the cats. He'd done really well with it previous events, but it wasn't quite fitting right, so it looked something else. Like I was looking to go deep in on Bethane 1 with Legion, but just wasn't quite clicking. And I was looking at Lilith 4, but she wasn't quite going to come out in time. So in the end, I decided to default back to something I was familiar with, something I knew. Like I was quite comfortable with just playing out in the table into different things, and that was going to be minions for me.
That's cool. Yeah, it almost sounds like you're about to play a Mark II team with fucking cats and like.
Yeah, exactly.
Cats are still just as bullshit, right? Like a 20-inch walking threat or something ridiculous, casually.
Yeah.
The thing is, they got quite significantly buffed, especially with the change to leap now being plus instead of boosted attack rolls on just the pounce attack.
It's the whole lot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, no, it's +2 to hit and +2 damage on all the attacks. So
yeah,
I mean, there's certain things. Obviously, with Xerxes 1, who was playing it, just basically you can end up with a POW 16 walking threat of I think it's 17 inches with Stir the Blood and Weapon Master. They can just do silly things.
Yeah.
And Max Zero with Celerity as well. That it starts getting silly.
And it's not. And we'll say with Jamie, right? Beth 1, obviously since the big update, her and Beth 2, I think really vying for a slot really strongly, but like. Beth
they
1,
are.
I was so sad for so long. They just destroyed Beth 1 in the transition, and it was so nice.
Oh, they wrecked
to
her.
see him actually back, and it's like yeah, we won't really talk about it, but we'll basically just put her back to how she was, and then give her a little bit of tweaking. So that was
They gave her a lot of tweaking. It wasn't a little bit.
Just a little bit.
She brings quite a lot of unique tools to Legion, which is the really cool thing. She does a great Archangel, and if you're going to play Legion right now, having a well-supported Archangel is a really good thing to have in your pair.
Yeah.
But largely for her, it's bringing both the ability to turn on the spells, which have some really cool models, not just the Hex Hunters, but Ice Witches, Black Frost Shard. There's a load of models that get really cool buffs, but also weirdly Hex Blast. Hex Blast is one of Legion's few ways to remove upkeeps from a distance. Yep. And it really opens up some magic. For example, anything with trolls or with minions, if they're taking a Pyre Troll, they can quite casually make all of their stuff immune to non-fire shooting. If you have Hex Blast, you can knock off that Animus, and suddenly your Archangel shooting is back on again. So Hex Blast as a tool is really useful to have in a Legion gun line.
It's great
especially
into
stacked
crap like
within
Assyria, and people love dropping Assyria in there and being able to knock admonition off Hemera after she's just thrown 3 blinding lights is a really big deal.
You'd think that once she's thrown 3 blinding lights, you're probably on the back foot already. But
you're on the back foot, but you can play back after you take Hemera off.
Yeah,
if you can't take Hemera off, you're really fucked.
It's all good. Cool. So with that, do you want to go through your lists then, guys? I said let's do it earlier, and then I just interrupted Chris. Sorry about me. So, Chris, what was your pair? So your pair was Assyria and Gorshade. What was the list?
Yes. So Gorshade 4 was just because they have changed since. So just bear with me 2 seconds. So Gorshade 4 was obviously Gorshade, Silas, 2 Chimeras, Hydra, Aelith, 2 Ghost Snipers, Priest of Nissa, an Executioner, the Nissa, 2 Arcanists, Scythe, Hermit, a unit of Risavast Defenders, Silena and the Nis, and a unit of Wardens with a Solus Escort. And then my Assyria list was my typical anti-gunline Assyria list, which consisted of Assyria, Manticore, a Chimera, a Phoenix, 2 Tridents, a Hermit, a Lara with Discordia, 2 Arcanists, 2 House Shield Arcanist units, and a unit of Battle Mages with a Solus Escort as a contesting unit.
So that's in Forge
That's interesting.
All of the Jacks are shield guards. You didn't.
We haven't. I haven't seen a lot of Mittens recently. You want to talk a little bit about what brought them into the list?
I'll be honest. Largely just as a contesting unit, they do.
Okay.
They do make certain. I mean, one of the things the list can struggle with is dealing with mass heavies or kind of large, kind of hard hit targets, because obviously there are hard hitting models in there with the Manticore and the Phoenix and Discordia to a certain degree, but being able to kind of affect the peace trade, especially with the Assyria with blind light, being able to bring defense down, and the Hermit being in there to kind of add with telemetry, adding +2 to the magic attack.
They make a big difference to the viability of the Hermit as well, because he's still quite a slow piece to apply a debuff. So to be able to pull people in with mittens.
Not so slow in Ret.
I mean, even in Ret, it's a 13-inch threat instead of a 10.
A bit higher.
Tridents as well.
Oh
yeah, Trident can 15-inch it, but then you're using the Trident to push him and not something else. So,
and you're not doing that in Forges either, because obviously you haven't got the 3-inch repo. I mean, if you're going deep into the jank tank, you can even slam him with the Trident if you're getting that desperate. But it's just the fact.
If you really want to dive into the jank tank, I remember Stephanie talking about taking a cricket to slam him as well.
Yep, done it before. Used the Hermit as a contesting model.
Do whip snap as well. Ret have definitely got the fastest fucking crazy old
fastest Hermit.
Yeah. Just lifts up his skirts and toodles forward like across the fucking army.
I think Aurora 1 might have something to say about that. Her Hermit goes a very long way, but yeah.
Yeah.
But there's no jank to that. That's just OP. It's different, right? you've got to really like reach for it with Ret to build it that way. But yeah, that's a really cool list. And obviously the mittens, right? I've got crit knockdown on the mittens, right? So
exactly.
Feat turn, and obviously a serious feat is an extra die to attack and damage, and you choose the dice to discard, so you can much more effectively fish with those crits. I'm running her.
Yeah, it's a good crit fish.
Yeah, I'm running her in defenders at the moment. I say I'm running. I really had like 5 games with me, but I'm running wardens with her as like the meat shield because she can help them to land those crits basically. Feat turn. Everyone likes to be hit by great amputations.
Yeah.
No.
It is nice, and the main reason I don't play Assyria in Defenders is because of Gorshade. Personally, it just feels like you're playing the same models with Assyria as you are with Gorshade, which isn't necessarily a terrible thing, but I feel that it does limit your matchups to a certain degree as well, because effectively Gorshade with its 2 main spells of being an armor debuff and a defense debuff is doing, other than obviously the critical effects and things, is doing a similar thing to Assyria, especially with the Cloud Wall. You've got some gun lineouts, not as strong as Assyria again. So I lent more heavily into forges because obviously that's where all the anti-gun line tech is,
absolutely.
effectively.
That's cool. Jamie, what did you build in troll minions hybrid land?
What did your trolls look like?
So I can honestly say it's a minions list because I bought Will for food.
Oh,
I bought
wow.
Rask. Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
So I had Rask and a fairly standardish kind of build, probably one deviation from the normal at the moment. So Rask himself is running a blind walker, two blind walkers and a wrestler. You've then got Barney 0 running not one but 2 squids. After playtesting, I could be greedy enough to get a second squid in there on him, which is just so beautiful. Got Rorsch and Brine. Then you've got a singular Death Archon, and then just a smashing of support solos. So Boomy 3, Hermits, Quack and Gub, the Mist Speaker, and the Witch Doctor. So that was Rask.
I had a crazy thought a while ago. Is there no way for Rask to fit in Melvin 1?
You can do, and it used to be very popular because you could give him elasticity.
Exactly.
From the squid and rage, and he would come in as a power 23 berserking overtaking. The problem is he's 17 points, and that's a heavy plus support.
Is that a deal breaker for him?
When you've got overtake on your beasts anyway, and he can't take rage, so I think don't get me wrong, he's still a great piece, and if you want to have him,
why can't he take rage?
Great stuff.
Why can't he take rage?
War beast, isn't
because he's not a war beast. He can take fury, but he can't take rage.
Right.
So he's not bad, but I think I'd rather take like a Swamp Horror or Rorsch and Brine plus another 2 or 3 points worth of models like the Witch Doctor or the Myspeak or the Croak Sorceresses.
That's fair.
You can be like I have described this list as quite greedy, and I think it's because running 2 Swamp Horrors on Barney 0. Most people will only run 1.
Yeah. It is quite greedy, but it also sort of answers the problem of Barney Rask launches but doesn't trade too well. Like he'll always strike first, but you kind of need an extra heavy just make those trades. It's so much prettier.
I think that was the case with old Rask. Maybe go back a couple of years ago, but the way that Minions has gained tools, I don't think that's the case anymore. Rask is very good at cheating peace trades. So you've got Hoofit, for example. So that's effectively repo 4 or 5 on anything in that list. That's huge, particularly when you go back into the feet. You've got Admonition on, not in my list, but if you've got them with a Swamp Horror, that's a no knockdown Admonition model. You've got Quack and Gub who can hand out 2 Enliven, so again you've got enlivening on the squids. And actually, when you add the Herds as well to walk around and damage roll, I found that if you're cagey about it, you can actually cheat peace trades pretty well. But I'll be honest, I think that's comes because I spend a lot of time playing Arcadius, so I'm used to heavies that fall over in a moment, and using things like hyper-aggressive Enliven to try and play into those kind of moments. That was my main list, if you like. That was the one I was most comfortable with. I tinkered around with the off list. I was looking towards Gunny 2 for a while because he's still bent. And then I settled in what had actually become my favourite list to play at the moment, which is Colgrimma in Venge of Dunia. I know controversial, Colgrimma's new. It's not like she's not been at every troll tournament pairing for the last 4 years.
Well, it's good to be a trailblazer.
Yeah. And fair play, I was borrowing models off both Chris and Barry running the event to play these lists. So I had Colgrimma in Venge of Dunia. She's got a Warhog, so it's still a minions list because I've got a pig, a Pyre Troll, and a Bouncer. I've then got Madrak 0 running a Mountain King, 2 Dunian Archons, Boomhowler 3, a Swamp Gobber River Raider, and a Farasappa, and then a Minstone with a Cold Stone, a Dunian Knot, and then a Minions of Brigands with a Warlord.
So you've leaned into the option that most troll players have treated as, I don't know, either a trap or have just ignored, of just having Maddie. What the hell's the name of that spell where he gets to have the Mountain King attack after running?
He's got Jackhammer.
Jackhammer, that's the one I was looking for.
So it's an armor 23 colossal. which is already a bit of a gear check. But Colgrim adds a lot more onto that as well. So her main thing she adds to it is Owl's Wisdom. So now it's a spell immune armor 23, and that's it's more relevant than people think it is.
Oh,
it's
not
very
just
relevant.
Like you can't apply like mortality, you can't apply disintegration. A lot of offensive spells, but it also means you can't use Hex Blast to get rid of the upkeep. You can't use Crippling Grasp or Enfeeble or Blinding Light.
Hunter's Mark, nice, popular to get into in the first place.
Yeah. Like there's a lot of things that all of a sudden, like this particularly when he starts spawning out whelps, he's blocking landing zones. And if you kill a whelp, so you send it a heavy, you do 10, 15, 20 damage. But every time you hit him, you spawn your whelp. And these whelps are now blocking off a 2-inch ring around this Mountain King.
And if you don't kill them, that's going to undo half the damage.
And with the 2 Dunian Archons stood next to him, if you kill a whelp,
it'll still undo half the damage.
That's upsetting.
It's pretty egregious, and then you combine that with Colgrim has still got a great toolkit. She's got a Cloud Wall. She's a personal absolute monster with her sprays. Her feat is devastating against some lists, particularly gun lines. She's got a very potent assassination with that list as well still. And then the rest of it is just kind of supporting either the Mountain King or her at that point. The list is really the Mountain King plus Colgrimmer and all their cheerleaders.
Oof.
Right. So you said the Rast list was your main. What was your main, Chris? Was it the Gorshade?
If by main you mean the only list I played, yes, Gorshade.
Really?
That's a pretty good description.
That's a fascinating thing to hear on the back of you went back to Ret because you're comfortable with Assyria.
Well, the thing is with having Assyria in your pair is Assyria will typically scare guns away from a pair.
Fair enough. So she'll dictate the list choice.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that we kind of theoried that Assyria could be quite interested into some of the Legion matchups. Used to be good into traditional Crucible Guard, less so now. It's interesting with the rise of kind of like the Baldwin, Meat Mountains kind of lists. That's a bit of a weird one for Assyria, not great in my personal opinion. But there are a lot of matchups where it can just skew a pair. And to be honest, with Gorshade in a pair, with the exception of maybe Legion or where there's either sight in buckets, clouds aren't great for gun lines typically. So you're scaring guns off with both lists in a lot of things. So just having Assyria in the pair just kind of skews the pair effectively. So.
And I think it's worth commenting on this as well, bring in Ryan's list too, because Ryan's off list to his Dreamer brick, which was a standard Dreamer brick, 5-6 heavies, double trees, double archons and stuff. He was looking at a lot of different options, and we convinced him basically to take Old Witch because she's probably Grymkin's best gunline answer. And for things like Signar, like trenches, things like that, to an extent, Crucible Guard again, Legion to an extent, she can really punish some of those big brick breakers that want to pull apart with high-powered guns. A Grymkin bricker might be able to do it. All of us kind of had like a main list we were quite comfortable with, and they built kind of an anti-gun line list as a off list, which probably says something about how we were approaching the meta as a team.
That makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, cool. Well, so do you guys want to jump into your games and let's talk through your path to victory? So, who did you start off playing against? What was the first team you're up against?
The first team was called the Malignant Fusions, which was one of our locals. I'll let Jamie go through the process and kind of like the thinking behind that.
Yeah, sure. Just so as a general, so what we did is when the list came out, we had a week to build and prepare. We had a look through each of the lists, and we basically came up with a plan. In a 3-person team tournament, you can't really afford to have many big dodgers. What we wanted to do is work out who we were going to try and pick the matchup for, and who we would pick out of the opposing pair as our first and second choice. Fairly simple. Didn't take too long to work on through. Just chatting and looking through the lists between us all the week.
Yeah.
The Malignant Fusions, 3 great guys, Martin, Gabe, and Ewan. Ewan, if you're listening to this. Looking at their list, so they brought 2 Carjacks, 1 Crix version and 1 Cador version, and then also Grymkin. Big meta monsters.
I think it was Asphyxius, not Carjack for the Cricks.
Oh no, apologies. That's apologies to Martin. Doing well so far. We had. I should let Chris take over this, and he's more all over this than me.
I was say
yes,
because obviously when Old Witch 2 and 3 came out, you could play her like for instance the WC in your team because there were two different casters, right? Because it was 2 and 3, whereas Karchev is just Karchev Death Shack. It's the same no matter what faction you play in. So obviously different events have different rules. So I didn't know whether that was the thing, but yeah, I know a lot of the Crix players that are up our way have sort of tried Karchev and going, well, maybe we should be actually just looking back at Gatsby 3.
And most people have kind of, I dismissed him initially. I've had to reevaluate him quite a bit. He's doing really nicely in Crix because his list brings a lot more shooting power than the Cador version.
Yeah, it's a very different kind of list and asks its own questions. I think it's less skewy, but it's more kind of open to what kind of creativity you get with.
Yeah.
So looking at their lists, we decided that we probably didn't want to put Rhett into the Carjack bricks. And out of the two of them, was going because of the way that Gabe built his Carjack list. He's actually got Behemoth in there and Beastone 9 on Sorcerer 0, which means the list hits actually a lot harder than some of the builds that have more like Marauders in, more Rages. There's a lot of armor cracking. So I was a bit concerned that might, with some decent dice, if we don't control it well enough, that might punch through a Dreamer brick.
I was about to say that sounds like a problem for Dreamer if he's.
It's a game.
Faster than, and it's got more heavies. It's a bit scary.
It's a game, but it's one where if dice go the wrong way, you could lose a heavy way you're not meant to. So what we did is we put down me. So I would pick the matchup with the intention that if they hadn't protected their Cador player, I would take the Cador matchup, and then kind of accept it would be an even game probably on the matchup side, and then let Grymkin and Rhett go and do their thing. I did get Gabe. So we played Cador versus Minions, and Chris, you got Martin's Chris, didn't you? Do you want to talk about the game with Martin?
Yeah. So obviously looking at Martin's pair being Denny 1, Baines, Doc Host, and Gatsby 3 with all the character jacks, which I thought was quite interesting. I think ideally I probably wanted a Syria into kind of Denegra, ideally, but I couldn't risk putting a Syria into Gatsby 3 with, obviously, in Forges with the Black Industries theme benefit.
Yeah, Carapace means you're not shooting them down, and you don't really have the hitting power for them.
I've played the matchup. It's playable, but it's not great in any way. So I thought, obviously, Gorshade has got decent game into both, so I'll drop Gorshade. And yeah, obviously Martin's returning player to the game. Very good player back before his hiatus, as it were. But playing into the Banes, it just basically turned out that my infantry was probably a better quality than the Crix infantry with the Banes. I've still looking further. I've got the revive and obviously the stationary effects with Gorshade's feet. So it basically just turned into me out attritioning Martin. Turn over turn. So
new Gorshade showing Crix how it should be done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm sure that went down fine.
There's a reason he rage quit Crix. You want to show him how to do it better with better toys.
Yeah. Using things like Scythe and Ghost Snipers for early game skirmishing, just taking out 4 or 5 models a turn, along with kind of Gorshade's armor debuff on the unit, and then putting pie plates on top of infantry as well, because he's having to kind of jam in to effectively the defenders to kind of get any work done. Just removing stuff bit by bit with that. And yeah, I think it went to turn 4 or 5, and it was a scenario win effectively, but it was due to attrition.
Cool.
So
nice. And then Shane, what was the Karchev game like in the end?
Yeah, so we had Gabe's pair was pretty similar, battle group heavy. One was Strakov 1, who's awesome, and one's Karchev 2. So I had to put down Rask to try and break through that armor. He put down Karjak. It was a good game. Gabe is a new player. He's learning fast and is getting really good. But there's definitely elements of the game where I was able to get up on him from that side. So I went first. Top of 2, I managed to steal a Marauder because he knocked past locked horns on the first turn. Didn't understand how far Brine could go, and I even managed to hoof it with Brine after killing the Marauder behind a forest so that he couldn't retaliate. So I was already kind of up. I managed to charge with the Death Archon and disrupt a Juggernaut after Rask had shot it with his disruption gun. So it was stationary and disrupted, so the jacks got turned off. And the next turn I managed to do it again, but this time onto Behemoth, which knocked off both Death Ward and disrupted Behemoth and stationaried him.
Ooh,
so
that's rough.
Good
I mean, to be fair, I think even if you cast Locked Horns, you can get Brian up to such high power strength, you'll still char through him.
It's more difficult. It was a really good learning game from my side, because I rolled pretty happily at the left hand side, stealing the Marauder with Rorsch and Brine, pushing up with the Wrestler, and the blind walkers are only power 14, but I could still get a +6 damage swing on the 8 if I could get the Hermit in there. So I could apply that on there. The problem was that he pressured the circular zone on split decision really well with Behemoth and 2 Marauders. And because I was having to focus down on the left-hand side to try and collapse scenario that way, I couldn't actually switch my damage buffs over effectively enough to deal with actually just layers of meat coming down the other side. I won on scenario in the end, but I had less than a minute left on the clock. I very nearly clocked out just trying to chew through him with attacks. And he had a trample assassination on me on his feet with a Marauder, which I could easily camp through. But it left this Marauder sat right next to Rask, who had no heavies around him, and contested my flag. And the only way I won was by managing to go and use a squid to drag a contesting heavy away and kill Sorsha 0 to turn off Beast 09. And some really janky stuff to kind of score his flag to get up to the 6th point to get ahead. So it was a really good lesson that even that, like for me as well, that Rask could think, okay, this is something I think will work really onto Karjak. Actually, this is more difficult than it looks. You can apply damage, but can you do it every turn enough times to chew through that layer of hitting power? So Ryan played into the mirror. He played Ewan's Child List with Dreamer. I think from what he told us, he sent some notes for this because he couldn't make it. But he managed to, I think Ewan forgot to reposition an Archon back, so he managed to get ahead with that. And I think he managed to using the new Wormwood trees to drag in Child and get it with Skin and Moans in the end. It's a rough. The Grymkin Mirror, I think they deserve each other, but the Grymkin Mirror is always going to be difficult. But I think Dreamer's ability to create phantasms and her other tricks probably is going to outbrick what the Child wants to do.
Yeah. I mean, I know that I don't know if it's changed. Like the standard wisdom, kind of, I don't know, 2 years ago, was always you play Dreamer into everything, and you bring the Child to play into the Dreamer matchup. Like back in the heyday, that was always the idea that the Child's got a further threat range than the Dreamer, and it's just really that matchup that you want the Child for.
But now you've got trees and threat ranges.
But you've got trees, and the trees are great. The trees are so good.
Also with the AoEs as well, like the -2 to hit is huge when your heavies are all def 13, and Child is doing big damage. She's not bringing that hit buff which Dreamer does with Manifest Destiny. So I think in that first off as well, Dreamer's fixing both values. Child's only really fixing one.
Yes, especially
that's true.
And like Longy's got some Gremlin Swarms, so he can even like make it even more offensive by applying the Desecration Aura and Enfeeble and Annoyance, and be like,
Annoyance.
It's like, I don't care how high your stuff is for the Child List. It's like, just not hitting my stuff. It's fine. So a clean sweep for the first round. So
it was nice.
And then on to lunch. Go eat Asgard games, guys. Really delicious.
I can't tell you what I had for lunch. If that's the next question.
I had a burger. It was delicious. I've only ever had the burger because it's so nice. I keep on like going, I do fancy stuff that's on the menu, but I'm like, but burger's just like proper delish. Anyway, so the next round, what did you guys find yourself up against?
Fishcord.
All right, cool. So from London, but with Barry as well, right? So it's
no Barry.
No Barry.
No Barry.
And then that's Essex. Yeah.
It was Tom. Apologies, Tom. I can't remember your last name for the life of me. Is it? It was playing Convergence.
Yes.
Obviously, so obviously they've come down from Essex.
Tom Andrews, that was it.
Tom Andrews, sorry, Tom. They were one of the teams we actually had as potential kind of winners of the tournament, or kind of like
they're a team to watch always.
Obviously, on WTC England 2020, the one that got cancelled, well, one of the two that got cancelled, I was actually on a team with Ryan and Dean. Obviously, didn't go anywhere, but obviously, two very strong players.
Was Dean up for this as well?
For WTC, yeah.
No. I mean, was he up at Walsall?
Yes, it was. It was Dean, Ryan, and Tom.
Dean, Ryan, Tom. Right.
Yeah. So it was a team of concern. Obviously, especially with Crucible Guard and Legion being very apparent in the meta at the moment. Convergence still strong, especially with some of Tom's lists when we actually kind of looked into them were really quite scary, with Lucant and the bots now coming back on full boxes at 8 boxes is quite terrifying at times. But I'm sure Jamie can go a bit further into being the captain and into the matchup process.
Well, this is a rematch actually because we faced off against them in the Showa team event. So I'll be when they had Barry back then, we're guaranteed second place. Look, this was kind of a weird one. I think when we were looking at it, we were most concerned, generally speaking, about the Crucible Guard list. Lucas and Baldwin, pretty standard, but just the amount of hitting power that can bring out from the Lucas list is enough to concern Dreamer and my minions lists to an extent, and then similar that Chris has already talked about, the Baldwin Meat Mountain into Rec can be a bit dicey.
Yeah.
We wanted to try and target down Legion because I think both Chris and I felt that we had pretty decent games into Legion. Michael Grimmerlist is pretty teched to play into Legion, and Gorshade 4 again can be quite effective. So double checking what we put down. So
Ryan's just joined us in chat as well as you started going through the process.
As Ryan in chat.
Yeah, he said perfect timing for him to come in.
Yeah, he's just joined.
Hey Ryan. You can correct us if there's anything I say wrong. So what we decided to do was to put down me again, with the plan being that I could, if Legion was on the table, I would take Legion because I felt Colgrim was quite strong into Dean's pair. And if that wasn't the case, I would take Crucible Guard because I thought that was also a decent game. So I ended up getting they put down their Legion Blair to protect him for Dean. So I took Ryan for a rematch. Chris then ended up playing Dean's Legion, and then Longy got Tom's Convergence. I don't think there was much more to talk about in terms of tables and that. There was stuff about rolling for tables and that, but it's hard to describe a table when you can't see it anyway, so I don't think we'll bother with that. But in order to make Ryan wait longer, do you want to talk about your game with Dean, Chris?
Yeah, so...
Seems only right.
I seem to just quickly on tables, they were quite heavy on kind of obstructions, the tables, the set of 3 tables. I know I took the one basically.
So that's not fun for you as a realist.
It can be, because it means you can hide Syria, which is typically the weak link.
Yeah.
But I ended up with a table with not many obstructions or anything with Dean. But the thing I found with Dean's pair was it felt a little list chickeny for myself. Because
so remind us, I know I saw I think he was playing Vale 1 and pairing that with?
Bethane.
Which Beth?
I think it's Beth 2, yeah. Belfagor.
Yeah, that's Beth 1.
Archangel.
Yeah.
So I felt I'd personally go into the matchup, I would have preferred to play Assyria into Bethane, just being able to blinding light.
It's a weird one.
Things.
Legion wants Bethane to have deceleration up, but you typically play so much shooting that blinding light's a real pain in your ass.
Exactly. So, but I felt that I personally felt Assyria was a bit of a risk into Vale. So I thought Gorshade had a reasonable game into both. So I ended up dropping Gorshade into Beth 1, effectively. Dean said that, again, he felt it was rather less chicken. I can't remember the exact way round. He would have preferred to have had Vale into Gorshade, but was feeling that was not too great into Assyria, weirdly, because he was worried about Zingelius being shot off. I might be incorrect there. That's what I mean, that's
the thing. Angels do get shot off in just randomly.
Blink of an eye.
Yeah. So it was a bit of a weird game. This just a little bit of backstory is I was playing Gorshade 4 before he was meta, effectively before the change, and a lot of the upgrades that the priests and the and Aelith gave have all changed kind of wording or kind of where they were. So things like, I'll pre-state this, that the Priest of Nissor's immunity to cold, I believe, was a spell originally, or part of the spell, or a command ability.
I was going to say, in an area, right, rather than just...
Yes, elite cadre. Yeah.
So
for some reason, at the start of the game, I believed it was a spell. So it basically would have made this matchup significantly better if I'd remembered this and wasn't remembering past versions or
were you
misremember,
making sure you didn't clump to get grabbed by hoarfrosts or something, or
well, basically my army was immune to it.
But
the elite cadre stays on the table.
Right.
Yeah, but were you playing without realizing that? So you were trying to space out?
No, I was effectively I told Dean that his cold spells were working on all my infantry effectively, because I was typically casting the +1 or when I wanted that, he was basically allowing him to play cold spells against my infantry, which was obviously something he couldn't have been doing. But
okay, so you handicapped yourself.
Yeah, so for that reason, I had basically started off being very cagey. Dean was obviously getting a little bit of shooting into me. I had some pretty good tough rolls early on, so I didn't lose an awful lot of infantry. Risavas with one effect on fires typically surviving about 66, I think we worked out, Jamie. Both fire going out, armour, not cracking armour, and kind of the tough no knockdown. There's about a 66% chance that they carry on. It's obviously with the corrosion that it gets a bit weird. Because obviously corrosion is a little bit more effective because it's guaranteed to kill effectively if it gets through. But I pushed forward effectively, and I had a very good turn of kind of shooting with scythe and kind of pushing forward. And to be honest, my dice probably were a little bit kind of strong early on. And then basically did the typical Gorshade thing of just basically push 20 dudes into your opponent's face and
feet and say who's going to be stationary this turn.
Yeah, Dean made a slight mistake because we were playing. What was the scenario? It was spread the net. So he made a mistake of not contesting the top right flag.
Yeah.
His own flag effectively. So I ended up scoring 4. There was a world where I could score 6, really relying on Scythe hitting all her shots. She was skirmishing on the left hand side. She didn't, so I went 4 ahead, but largely on feet turn, that is enough to
it's a big swing anyway.
That's a big deficit to come back from.
It didn't help that Dean had Dean was trying to remove Aelith off the flag. Aelith did Aelith things of tough no not down 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
So sat on the flag. It's just certain games of that will just happen.
I've not had my Aelith tough once yet.
it was even better when he could walk away as well, which is what he used to do. But so I went ahead. Dean tried to do a few things to try and kind of pull himself back into the game, kind of points wise, and with the risk of us being as kind of the top hit they are, kind of A, hitting you back, and B, kind of just not moving. It just got to a point where he didn't have enough pieces to kind of contest everything that he needed to contest on Spread the Net for me not to score enough. Having said that, when he cut back over to me, a lot of my stuff died because a lot of it was burning and corrosion. Obviously, the burning stays on. I believe, am I correct?
The Archangel Animus.
Archangel Animus. So I lost all my water effectively to the fire and corrosion. I was left with kind of a few solos, kind of a handful of Nis and a few defenders. But I managed to kind of, obviously, at that point, I didn't really have to remove anything. Gorshade was stood in front of a Blight Archon, which was contesting my rectangular zone with 6 or 7 souls, kind of right in front of the Blight Archon. And I think the Blight Archon wasn't even camping anything. I could quite trivially score my own flight as well. And contesting wasn't an issue because I've obviously still got a relatively large amount of contesting models. So a bit of bad luck, me making a lot harder by not understanding my own rules. Because obviously the Black Forest Shard, Ysilla using cold. Cold spells would have reduced some of the infantry he was taking off the table. Ended up being the CP score line was not reflective of the game, but it was a good close game. And if it went another turn, I'd probably would have lost. But it was a good game, and Gorshade 4 doing Gorshade 4 things of just eating 20 infantry into your opponent's face and seeing if they can deal with it.
You just took
it's a lot of heat.
Easily took enough CPs to just bank it on that turn then.
Yeah, and that's largely what Gorshade 4 is doing. Yeah. So you wanted to have a big enough turn of kind of going, I've shut you out of the scenario for this many turns. I'm either going to try and...
Funnily enough, my second game was against Andy Garrard, and I'm running Heretic with all the Dreadrots into Maddie 3. So I think I ended up clocking, and Andy had about 3 or 4 minutes left on his clock, and our scores at the end were just, I think it was just like zeros for everything. No units had died, no beasts had died, and our dead pile was humongous for both of us, but nothing complete had died. So it was just like, we've just had nearly a 2-hour slugfest and scored nothing.
I recently had the dubious pleasure of watching Maddie 3 playing into Callus 1. And the score at the end is like non-existent, but my god, both of them deserve each other at that point.
There's a lot of games in the meta where it ends up being these miserable grind-offs. So you Gorshade 4, your Meat Mountain, your Crucible Guards, Baldwin Meat Mountains.
Yeah.
At least they've got a tool to remove Tough with the Vulcan.
Yes.
Which is relevant. But in the Madrak 3, the Madrak 3 Gorshade 4 matchup is absolutely miserable.
As does Callus with Blightbringer.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a few matchups there which are quite disgusting, but yeah.
But yeah, we deserve each other when we're doing these.
Yeah, there's no sympathy here. There's just sympathy for the audience.
Yeah, but it definitely does feel like there's a significant amount of much more grindy attrition lists in the pairings on the tabletop.
It does.
What was Ryan's second game?
So I believe played into Lucant with
Yep.
Dreamer. And I just think, again, another grindfest. A Dreamer brick which doesn't die, and a Lucant brick which refuses to die as well. I mean, I suppose that at least Ryan's got the benefit of having RFP with snacking. I don't know if you can snack on living models. I might be wrong.
The Phantasm's just removed from play, so he can remove from play some stuff. And where it looks weird if you look at how Ryan plays on Spread the Net, it looks like a brick. Everything is sat like in this little corner that's just contesting his zone, like his rectangular zone, and a bit of this one. And looking over, it's like, how on earth are you still keeping this game? There's nothing here. But because Dreamer can contest so easily with Gremlin Swarms, with Phantasms, and he can lock out his zone from all the converts. He killed everything that was a threat, and he just stopped him from scoring his zone, so he was racking up points in his own turn. I think that's how we ground out. I think it went to clock in the end, but that was the...
Ryan's over in chat saying it was Lock that you got dropped into.
Oh, sorry. Oh, of course, that was Lock, yeah.
So I guess Lock's got an interesting game against Dreamer, right? Because it's going to load up power tokens if he beats on the right turn.
Does anyone know who or what Dennis is?
That was a part of it.
Dennis is Terry from Boston.
Is that who's making bad noise about about our best girl Vale?
Oh, Vale,
you know what?
One is banned, Vale, right?
Yeah, you know what? You keep singing that song. I agree with you. Let's sing it loud enough to get her another buff.
What I was going to say is interesting listening to Chris's take on the Beth 1 game, because one thing that really stands out is she really struggles on Spread the Net because she doesn't want to give away any of her lists. There's not throwaway pieces. And you guys might be playing Legion more, might be able to explain more of that, but I've always kind of felt playing Legion that I don't have things I want to give away to...
I'm a bad Legion player, and it's because I struggle with that. You know, I kind of grew up in Mark II Cricks, where throwing away pieces is something that you just do without a second thought. And it's so hard with Legion because everything's expensive. You don't want to give away a single piece.
Yeah. It's what I found with when I was playing her is I really struggled to reach out and contest objectives, particularly on these very live scenarios.
Yeah. Ryan's saying it was like a really odd one from his point when he looked over and watched the game where Longy and Tom were basically rotating. They're basically like going for each other's flags, just playing the game the wrong way. But yeah, it sounds like a grind fest to get out. And so Longy played Dreamer, so he won, right? That one. He eventually grounded out, which leads. So it's 2-1. Or 2-0, and then your game then, James, was what was the pairing from?
So you're playing Tom.
I was playing Ryan. He had Lucas,
Ryan,
Lucas Meat Mountain, and with Failed Experiment and Assault Troopers, backed up by a Vulcan. I believe it was a Vulcan. Let me just double check. Because I did have the list of it to remind me. Yes, he had a Vulcan, which is a bit spooky for me. And then Lucas with double Railless, Failed Experiments, and Vindicated. Just a general kind of Lucas sort of list with the Famrite in there as well, because they're silly with TK. I dropped Cold.
They're just silly, right? Let's take a minute to thank all the Archons that got nerfed just to give the Thamite Archon a little bit of a shift up the ladder. Because they just weren't good at it. Like it was really, we were talking on our local chat. I think it was earlier today, and like Golly was referring back to when he was playing Samurai Archons in Flames, and like that one turn where you roll 3 for their shots. You're like, this guy's a god, and now you just get it every single fucking turn with them. It's like, I'm not sure they're not. Obviously, they don't threaten heavies half as much, but I think if you take out the heavy equation, they're probably more as oppressive as the old Death Archons were. Except that they sit back.
No,
they're just as oppressive.
Yeah, absolutely. So like,
I mean,
if it goes down a
they
shot,
threaten
they
on
kill-
a good day they'll kill, like on a great day they'll kill 6. On a good day they'll kill 4 to 5. Like
Or they'll create 9 inches of eruption of clouds.
Yeah, of you
Yeah,
coming into this with your
that's fair.
full infantry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge.
And they can do it from so far away.
Yeah,
I like if anyone's going to any card tournaments at the moment, you need to have a plan for Striker 1 double Archon, or just anyone who's playing Flames double Thamrite Archons. Everybody's playing it at the moment because it's really fun.
Is Striker sticking snipe on Archons?
Yeah, so they're range 18.
Right. Yes.
And under the feet, they're like 16, 22.
And obviously there's a plethora of shield guards around them anyway. So on the off chance you don't get a shield guard on them, you'll probably miss and they'll dodge out of the way for the next shot anyway.
Yeah, exactly. They're very hard to deal with, and they're just they're working every turn, just doing stuff. Whereas the Death Archons would have a great turn, and then that'd be them because they get killed back.
You're setting up one great turn. They're not getting it every round.
Whereas the Thams now are just sitting in the back and just consistent work every turn.
Or going down the flanks and getting into support staff. They're really versatile pieces.
It's horrifying if they can start picking off your back line.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, sure. So
Ryan's just agreeing with me then in the chat. He said, "Yeah, Thams he thinks are more oppressive than the original Death Archons were." That's The only difference is Death Archons can also take out heavies, whereas Thams can't. Well,
you can at least play. You can play a heavy. Yeah, you can play a kind of a brick list or a wall of heavies that aren't torn apart by Tham Archons.
Yeah, they might get severely bloodied, but survive it. So sorry, Jamie, go. What was the pairing?
That's all good. We talked about it afterwards. Ryan didn't feel he could drop Baldwin into me because of Rask. He just the Barney squids just eat all of the infantry.
That seems fair.
He wanted to play Lucas. I wanted to play Colgrimmer because I felt that if Rask goes second or is having to feat on his bottom of 1, he'll do a lot of damage. He could potentially as well do some good work into me under the feet with the Railers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I put down Colgrimmer. It was a fairly quick game. I went second. He pressed up pretty aggressively. One of the factors for going second meant that I got to force both of his. There was basically a massive building just towards the centre right as I was looking at it of the main zone, which really blocked the way his Railers could engage the game. So he put them both on the left side. So I put my Mountain King opposite down that to just go and bully them basically. He pressed up aggressively. I pushed up as well. He nearly killed the Warhog, I think, with the Vindicator and the Thamrite. So. And that was without disintegration in there as well. So Thamrites can definitely nearly kill heavies. I think it was slightly 40% chance to just kill it with just the Vindicator and the Thamrite. And I think he contested my zone with a Stinger. I then had a really big turn, so I charged the Mountain King. I pushed Colgrimmer up into the middle of the basically she was the furthest forward thing in my army in the middle of the circular zone. She hunters marked his objective so the Mountain could charge into it and kill it, and feated on pretty much his entire army. So everything except the Vindicator, I think. And then the Mountain King went in, killed the objective pretty comfortably, and then pretty crucially got a kill shot spray into the failed experiments. Which deafened the leader, meant he couldn't receive orders.
Nice.
Also, he had to position to not let Colgrimmer go and get aggressive sprays on the failed experiments and stationary them all at the front, or to give up just stuff randomly to the Mountain King. I managed to clear the circular zone as well by pushing stuff out. So I managed to go up 4 points with the objective, my flag, the circular zone, and my rectangular zone as well, and contest his. And nothing could shoot because of Colgrimmer's feet. So the trains are only getting to just run into things. We did have a gentleman's agreement. If you managed to kill the Mountain King with the by ramming it with a train, then I would concede.
What? Just like a one shot?
We've just complained about Thamurites, but turns out a Thamurite Archon that can't fly and can't shoot is a really sad Thamurite Archon.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah. And like the Suppressor can't shoot, so there's no rust or ice cages or anything coming from it. The Ascendant Mentalist can't fly, so she couldn't get to a certain place. So it really kind of locked down his list quite a bit. I think I was about half an inch out of range of the Prospero run Suppressor being able to get into Dispel Bracer. But even with that and Disintegration, I don't think without his guns he was going to be able to clear through it. He might have had a chance if he get enough failed experiments in. He had to kill his own unit leader to be able to get orders back on them. In the end, he went for assassination on Cold Grimmer, but she was camping for... she'd got Owl's Wisdom on herself, so she was immune to spells, so she couldn't be disintegrated or force hammered. She also got Earth's Blessing on herself, so she can't be knocked down or stationaried. So I think the run was a Vindicator shot after TKing like my shield guard out the way, and then I think 2 failed experiments and maybe another gun from someone might have been Prospero. But right. it wasn't enough to go through transfers. Yeah, and then because of the way I defeated as well, I've not been able to contest anything meaningfully either. So I just cleared up the next turn and scored out on scenario.
Cool. So that's another 3-3 then, right?
Yeah, we're doing all right at this point.
Yeah. So there was 3 rounds, right? I'm not mistaken. Just 3 rounds, wasn't it?
Yeah, we wanted to do it in 3 rounds, and there was 12 teams, so they cut to the final table at the end based off the number of wins. Yes. One of the factors we didn't talk about here is actually like our local Kador player, Rob, sadly tested for COVID on the day before, so his team didn't have him along. That took a Carjack player off the attempt, and they were one of our favourites to take home as well. So really unfortunate for Rob there not to be able to play him, but at the same time didn't have to play against Carjack.
Was it Rob, Dan, and
Grymkin?
Graham?
Yeah.
So did someone replace Rob then, or I can't remember?
Yeah, Chris Staker did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so they still got the Carjack experience, but a Crick's version of it instead.
Yeah.
But yeah, they cut to the finals, which was us versus the League of Gentlemen, which was Brett Wilkie, Andy Garrard, and Tom Atkinson.
Tomo, yeah. So basically, your old teammates / mentors.
Yeah. Well, Andy Garrett and I were on the first England nights together as teammates as well. So there was do a Star Wars reference, but something along that lines anyway.
Yeah, and I definitely pegged them as one of the teams that could have won it. Also, very strong. So they had Brett was playing Signar, he's playing Haley 2 and Striker.
Haley
3.
Trenches and Striker 1 Flames.
Yeah, and then what was Jim playing?
Jim wasn't there.
Oh, he wasn't there. We've just gone through this, yeah. So it was Andy's on Crucible Guard. Andy's on Trolls. So he's playing Madrak 3.
You played him, didn't you, Jack?
Yeah, did. It's been a long week. I won't lie. So Andy's on Madrak 3, and I can't remember what his off list was.
Book 2.
Oh, Baker. Okay, yeah, okay.
Right.
And then Tomo was Vlad, Doom Reavers.
Vlad 3.
Vlad 3 in Warriors Old Faith, yeah. So, how did you feel going into the final with these guys then?
So straight up, we said that we're expecting whoever plays Brett to lose, and that's because Brett is he's a wonderful gentleman. He's a phenomenal painter, and he's an insanely good Warmachine player.
Don't say that. He was talking to me earlier and said he was going to listen to the show. There you go, Brett.
The thing is,
Jamie wasn't paid to say this. This isn't a sponsorship deal. Honest.
I've never beaten him in the 10 years I've played Warmachine. I've played against him quite a few times.
Brett is a top gentleman. I've beaten him, I think, once, and I realised after the game it's because I cheated. So I had to message him and say I didn't beat you. It's fine. I thought I forgot that monkeys didn't have acrobatics or something like that.
Oh,
No, acrobatics.
Parry.
I thought monkeys had parry. Yeah.
yeah. I was about to say they do have acrobatics.
They do have acrobatics. Yeah, they didn't have parry. But yeah. So Brett obviously has been playing Warmachine for an awful long time. He's been captain, right, of WC team.
Yeah, multiple times,
as well as just like on the teams. And then Andy obviously is also been playing like a good long while, and he's also been a captain as well, right?
Yep.
Yes.
And then
Tomo's
Tomo's started to really take Warmachine, I think, seriously in the last like year or so, maybe just before COVID, and it's been like putting the games in, trying to get leads back on their feet, and obviously got on board with some very sterling teammates. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
When we played them, we were like, yeah, whoever's going to play Brett, sorry. Yeah.
The thing with Brett as well, like we did try and kind of remove the players from the equation to a certain degree, and it was just his pair as well. Like Striker 1 paired with Haley 3, it's two very different questions.
You're almost always going to end up in a list chicken situation there.
Yeah,
like
I played Golly like a week before, and before we'd seen the lists, and his pair against me was Striker Haley 3, and they were very, very similar, and it just absolutely just fucking annihilated my Grymkin army. He dropped Haley, and it's just like, I was like, well, I'm just absolutely broken. But
like I said, like Assyria can play that game into not the top 5% Haley 3 players, which I'd definitely put Brett in, because that matchup is playable. But again, it's such a hard matchup for the Assyria player almost, because you get a turn or two of blind lights, and then as soon as that's off the table, you've got nothing really. You just end up getting out attrition very quickly. So it didn't feel great for me. I don't know how Jamie felt into the pair.
Yeah, I spoke to Brett afterwards about it as well. I would have played Cold Grimmer, and I think he would have probably played Striker. But it's still a very like tight game either way, and there's a lot of parts into it. His Striker 1 is deceptive as well. It looks so. If you haven't seen the list, it's a Galleon and a Toro on Striker, Malvern and Mayhem 1, and then Jake's running another Toro. So it's three armor 20 heavies before buffs. And a Colossus.
They go a million miles, right? Because they get lifted, they get shifted around.
Yeah. So, and what it means is you can actually sometimes, or not even sometimes, like you got a decent chance of getting a good alpha in between the Famorites, between the Morrowind going in, between the threat range of the Jacks, and then you add +5 armor onto it, it changes the equation of defensive feat if you can attack and also get defensive feat.
It's a massive difference. It's why Beth 2 was such a nightmare before her nerf. Because Archangel's fast enough.
Yeah.
And you could do exactly that.
Yeah, for sure. So looking at this one, we thought probably the matchup that we wanted to avoid is, I think looking at it, reminding myself, we put down Ret, basically to avoid the Signal matchup because it was so cagey. The rest just had a decent game. This is one of the reasons we had Old Witch, and Ryan had a lot of Old Witch in his pair. Is Old Witch is probably Grymkin's best answer into Haley 3. So put down Ret, and Chris, you got Tom to play as Cador. Longy got Brett to play against his, and I got Andy to play against his trolls. But yeah, seeing as we're on a format, Chris, take it away.
So this pair I always find a little bit of a strange one, because obviously I've played a lot of Vlad 2, Vlad 3 pairs, and Assyria into Doomreavers feels relatively good, because obviously Tridents, even in their current kind of guys post nerf still shoot off a lot of Doom Reavers. I'm not 100% convinced on that matchup. Me and Jamie did debate this one quite a lot. I'd much prefer my old Raven list into that, but because obviously you can actually stay out of threat range of the Doom Reavers. But post sideways move for the Doom Reavers.
It's hard to really call it a nerf, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a little bit more predictable, so I can play that. But at the same point, I felt that Gorshade was pretty in a good place for that, and Assyria doesn't really want to play into Vlad 3, just because of the innate high armor of a lot of the solos, and there are plenty of shield guards in the list, which effectively the Assyria list is a gun line. I know it's an armor, it's an anti-gun line list, but it is a gun line as well. So yes. I went with Gorshade because obviously it's stopping the Doom Reavers from going on a killing spree effectively, because the feet and also the rest of us are hitting them back as well.
Yeah, so that was the interaction I just wanted to ask you about. So if you feet, does that freeze a Doom Reaver before it can berserk?
Straight away. As soon as a model is killed, it makes so things like Warjacks and things. I always used to play Gorshade into bricks effectively, because it makes kind of jacks and things so ineffective.
Of course, you get a tough check first as well, right? So you don't always get a tough check, and then if you do kill them, you press stage 3, and you get clocked back because the rest of us have got Aelith on the table.
Correct. Yes. Or even if Aelith's dead, it doesn't matter.
You brought him along for the day. That's all he needed to do.
He did his thing. Yeah. He taught them what they needed to know.
Yeah. So obviously that felt all right as well, and obviously being able to kind of limit charges with clouds. I know there is some anti-clouds with Vlad, but still, it's more things that they've got to consider, and Vlad's got to come forward, etc.
Yeah.
So I decided to go for Gorshade purely on the Vlad 3 matchup because I felt low model count is Gorshade's bread and butter, effectively. So I know the Judicator's a bit scary, especially being able to set fire to things, but I felt I could limit that to a certain degree. Obviously, if the rest of us survive, again, they've got a 66% chance of surviving fire and into blast, so that limits obviously the Judicator shooting. So yeah, it felt like a reasonably good matchup. So I did pick the Gorshade list, and again, it was largely a case of just pushing the list forwards, limiting what he could get, and trying to tie up the Judicator as much as possible to stop him playing, because it wasn't a very live scenario. I believe it was. Was it? No, it wasn't Bunkers. It was Recon 2. Recon 2. So it wasn't a particularly live scenario that Gorshade wants, because he would much prefer to play things like split decision and spread the net, because obviously locking people out of zones, etc. But the way Tom had deployed, he was definitely attempting to focus on one of the two zones. So his Chaosi, not his Chaosi, what they call it, the Cosside Woodsman. So they came on and didn't do a terrible lot on one side. Failed to kill the Chimera when they probably should have. Okay, so the shot at Chimera didn't kill it, and because he brought both units of Cossites on at once, I did manage to kind of limit the scenario effect they had. So I basically ended up taking the whole right flank off Tom and was scoring that consistently, and then just trying to tie up the Judicator as much as possible in his obviously high value solos with basically Risavast defenders and this, along with the feet, and just spawning the odd kind of reviving models when I could. Obviously, when the Judicator had the turn to go in with the sprays, he did pray battle, which let me obviously get my debuffs on and kind of and have that turn of things. There was one turn where he actually was hitting the Judicator with his own pardon me, Menotharkon to dispel the hand of ice, and did a massive chunk of damage to his own Judicator. But as soon as I can get Hand of Ice on, I can start obviously applying things like Wrist of Mass Defenders relatively well. Ended up effectively having a very good turn towards the end of killing the Judicator. At that point, the game's pretty much all tied up.
Just cleaning.
He's got, so it's just tying up models as well. Effectively, just putting a Wrist of Mass next to one on him. It's up to you if you want to take a Power 10 Weapon Master on the from the free strike. Hermit was applied to get the Judicator as well.
Yeah.
And do massive chunks, and again using the Hermit and the Ghost Snipers to skirmish down the left-hand side, just picking off bits that they could. So good game, probably a favoured matchup to me. Tom played it very well from what he had. Maybe playing a little bit more central would have benefited him a little bit more. But yeah, it was probably one of the easier matchups from my perspective for me in the team. Again, I don't want to have the Madrat 3 Gorshade. Or to be fair, even the Gorshade Borka matchup's pretty miserable with everything being cold immune. So I was quite lucky in that sense, but then again, that's how the team format works on a
good team.
3-team tournament. I get basically to cherry pick the matchups, so and from that perspective, it did work.
Brilliant. Do you want to talk about yours next game, or do you want to cover Ryan's?
I'll cover Ryan's next, and again, briefly, he can defend himself in the chat if I've misrepresented anything. So he played Old Witch into Striker 1. They both moved on up, and I think Ryan saw an opportunity to get ahead in scenario, go about 3 points by clearing getting his flag. I think it was the flag and both clearing both zones, and it basically hooked around dragging out a Toro from the zone using a tree pull. But I think he said that he hadn't realised that there'd been anchor on it from the objective, which meant it couldn't be pushed, which meant it couldn't be dragged out. So I think he committed in for a big scenario play to get ahead, and then couldn't score the extra points he needed to really close it out. And then from there, the heavies coming in. I
think his phrase from there was, and then Brett tore him a new one, so, slowly.
Yeah, I mean, Malvin and Mayhem brings his own focus, and the Toro brings his own focus, and then he's got 2 debuffs with Ragban and the Hermit in there as well. So that list hits really hard, and with its heavies when it wants to, and then you've still got the feet to dig through. So I think without having seen through the game properly to be able to see, then I think I think he went in for a big scenario play, didn't play out for him, and then he wasn't able to close it out before he'd been taken back, unfortunately. Well, fortunately for Brett, clearly, but unfortunately for us as a team, and we're a bit biased.
How were the games finishing? Was were you all dragging it out, or was someone finishing first, or was everyone watching the last game?
I think they were all pretty grindy. I think I finished first. Or was it you, Jamie?
I did finish first.
I think I'd finished first, and obviously I think Ryan finished similar time to Jamie, maybe just before. But yeah, they were all
down
especially
to the wire, sort of thing.
Yeah, it definitely was. So it was a good tight round.
Good build of suspense for the end. What you wanted to event. So how did it start with the pairing?
So me and Andy. This is a really interesting one. Madrak 3 is quite spooky for me because he's got Spell Piercer. I can't confidently put down Cold Grimmer because I can't bully the ball with the Mountain King as much, even though her sprays are really good in that match. And likewise, I don't want to put her into Borka because she's not getting any work done out of her sprays because everything means cold. So I put down Rask. Weirdly, that sort of I'm defending why I didn't put down Cold Grimmer when I said at the start Rask was my main list. I think it shows how my thoughts have changed over the last couple of weeks. So I put down Rask, and he put down Borka. Two almost classic style battle group heavy Warmachine lists, big defensive feats, pretty hard hitting, and just trading off. He had 3 heavies, Brawler, Mauler, an Earthborn, and the Pyre Troll, Madrak running an Axa, and then double bears, Boomhounds. A big solo package basically of all it's all getting the Northkin stone benefits. He had a full stone, so everything's getting plus extra strength, plus speed. So it's a really cool synergistic list.
Right.
Really importantly, he won the roll to go first. And what that meant is that he ran up aggressively with the +1 speed, so everything's speed 6 or more, up into the middle of the board. I picked a sub which had a beautiful pair of forest, which meant I could put a cloud from Veil of Mist in the middle and be really safe. So I moved up without feating and did that. He then pushed up really aggressively and feated. If anyone doesn't know, Borkatu's feat is like Gorshade, except you don't have to kill something. As soon as you touch it, you freeze, which is clearly awful for my heavies trying to take out his stuff. And I had nothing I could really throw in, nothing to commit in to go and do it. The big problem I had was that on recon you can very easily swing if you from my position you come up so aggressively. I had multiple heavies contesting my flag, and I think he had 1 heavy contesting my flag. Unless I gave away a lot, he was going to go up 4 or 5 points and win on scenario before I could punch back effectively.
Yeah.
So I threw away both the Blind Walkers and Boomy effectively to stay in the game. So I had 1 Blind Walker go and 2-handed throw the Earthborn to get him out off the range of the flag. Andy then dropped a Whelp down, which then contested the flag, and because he gets stealth under the feet, I couldn't get rid of other stuff. And I basically just ran a Blind Walker up, got into contested flag, got countercharged by Boomy, and hit with a power 15 Weapon Master, and just kept the scenario going. I also feated on that turn to protect my stuff, but a lot of his things were in walking threat range anyway, so it was only really things like the bears on the flanks.
Yeah.
Andy came back strong, took both. Say again, sorry?
Blunt it a little bit though. Rather than stopping him from crashing into you, you just like sort of blunt the further away sort of aspects he's got. Yeah.
It was more to because I had both my squids on the left hand side who can threaten quite a long way in and get a lot of work done. So I was trying to leverage that and Rorsch and Brian the other side. So Andy crashed on back in, took out both Blind Walkers and Boomy, and did a bit of damage elsewhere. My pushback, I killed, I think I killed the Earthborn and possibly the Brawler. A key mistake I made is I had a line using Balance Charge to get a squid onto his stone, to be able to get attack the stone, to start doing damage there, and potentially drag it out of self-sack range, to turn off the aura. So I sent 1 squid up there, but the way I moved around, I let Barney Zero get countercharged by Valka. Turns out Valka hits really hard, and it also meant that rather than sending my 2nd squid with Murderous into the bears, it just went in on Valka and took her out. This meant that Andy could kill both the squid and Barney, so I'd lost 2 heavies at that point. And I lost the Death Archon as well, I think, to something as well, and he scored some more points. Very much on the back foot. My play was he had to commit Borka in to get one of the squids gone before he could go after Barney. So I was basically left with an assassination with about 8 minutes on my clock to try and figure it out. And it came down to Rask doing a paralyzed shot on Becker, and then using Ghostly from the Witch Dock, Veil of Mists from Rask to move through enemy models, and basically putting a Wrestler onto Becker. Yeah, I mean, it's okay, but Becker is notoriously one of the hardest casters to kill because he's already armor. I think it's base armor 18, and then he's got +2 from the stone and another +2 from his Defiant Rage as well. But managed to get it all together. Got the Wrestler in on him, and managed to kill him with an attack to spare. I managed to get Rage on him, but I couldn't get both buffs on him because I needed to do other stuff with my Fury. But I did kill Borka with only 45 seconds left on my clock. So it was definitely down to the wire, and it was not a secure win from my side. But yeah, so I won that game, and that put us at 2-1 for the win.
awesome! Wow. Well,
very nice.
Congratulations, obviously. So that's
Very
really
tight.
cool. And especially like it's your home ground as well, right? It's your club, so a little bit of extra.
That is nice.
In keeping the trophy or whatever it was. I can't remember. Was there a trophy for it? Or was it?
I think Jacob did a set of dice, gold, silver, and bronze.
Yes,
so
that was it. Yes, nice. Yeah. So yeah, sounds like it was a really well. I was there, but it was a really cool event, and I definitely would 100% recommend any of the Walsall events. They've been cracking. I know you guys have done like a couple of practice days as well. I think is that right? Where you just like opened up invites to people close enough to just drive down on a Saturday, set up and play scrambles all day. We've done the same up here. We've got one coming up soon. Dom will tell me for not telling people the dates. I can't remember what the dates. It might be the 6th. It might be the 6th of May. No, March, not May. And that'll be at Sherwood, so it'll just be like at our local club. I think it's going to be like a tenner to cover like the bar being open. And we'll basically like rock up from, I think it's like 9 or 10 in the morning until 8 or 9, maybe at night, and just play games all day. And you guys have done the same, which is really cool. I know some of the Leeds lot are trying to do something similar as well at Patriot, and I think Andy Devine's trying to set up a Steamroller, which will be a Patriot games in Leeds as well. So it'd be nice to see things coming up. And obviously Welsh Masters has been announced and has sold out and then opened more tickets and then sold out and opened more tickets. And I'm not sure if they're full for that. I think it's 100 players it's ended up as. I think that's the limit, which I think is more determined by the venue rather than like the new Firestorm venue. Doesn't have such a ridiculous amount of gaming space that the old one does. But still looks fantastic. So if you haven't already got a ticket for Welsh Masters, go check out. You might be able to still squeeze in, or Martin might be doing a reserve. It's like, I assume he'll come back with all the plume from previous events and give away 1 million blisters of everything to everyone. It's always like
always would be nice.
Yeah, but it's like the giveaways that they used to do. They used to give like away an army per round. So literally like pick a random player out of the 160 odd, 170 odd thing at its biggest. Be like, here's a new army for you. Congratulations! Next round, come back for some more. So it's really nice to see events coming back up and clubs and groups getting back together. And then the WTC confirming they're definitely going ahead, and the Belgian team have been like really fast on the heels of the announcement from Deutsche saying like, here's the player pack. Get your teams pre-registered and get on it. So
well, the Belgians are coming to I saw their names on the Welsh as well, which is really awesome.
We only get like Woot and a bunch of others. Definitely have been to a number of them. It's obviously a nice drive for them, and then vice versa. Come October, it's a nice drive for everyone over here to go to Blankenberg. So if you are in the UK and you're interested in playing on an international level, definitely get on social media and have a look for your respective nations, teams, and applications, or talk to players, and someone will point you in the right direction.
It's one of those things that you just, if you're playing a lot, you really should make a plan for it.
It's a ridiculous.
It's just an experience you won't top.
Yeah. The Welsh applications are about to close. We're going to I think basically go straight into selection quite quickly, because obviously we're behind by now. Normally we'd have teams and shirts and everything sorted. I think, and you say, Jamie, that the English applications are end of the month, right?
Yeah, 20. I think it's the last day of February for them in, and then they're doing the announcements throughout March for captains and players.
I was just saying, and they're doing it a little bit differently this year, where just all of the applications open until the end of the month, rather than doing captains first and players afterwards, which I assume is just another example of the committees having to expedite getting their teams sorted now that it's definitely actually happening, and everyone's getting excited. I
think the captains are going to be announced a couple of weeks earlier, and then the captains with the committee are going to go and build their teams.
I imagine, but they're getting all the names in while they can, basically. Hopefully, I know Scotland were sorting it out, and they guaranteed their teams when the votes went out. and I think Ireland may have pulled out at the time. And then, events started happening again, and the boys over there all started looking at coming over to Cardiff for the Welsh. Hopefully, they'll actually be sending a team as well. So yeah, talk to your committees, talk to your communities if you're interested, and we'll find out soon, I imagine, whether there'll be a solo masters, which is basically a lot of the reserves and just people that want to go and meet with players from all over the world, go in for one crazy masters tournament that runs alongside of the WC, which is super cool. But yeah,
there's also if you have a trawl through any of the Warmachine Facebook pages, you'll see things like Rhinecon
yes,
and some of the other international events. No skill requirement to have to get selected on a team or anything. You can just go and have a holiday over in Europe and play a load of Warmachine as well.
Yeah, and the Belgian
really
Masters
awesome
is next month as well. I think it's end of next month is the Belgian Masters. They might have
the end of next month or end of? I thought it was end of this month.
It's end of April.
I think March was the Belgian Masters, yeah, and then Rhinecon is soon.
Is it end of March? Then maybe I actually do have time to. I thought it was end of February. I'd given up on it. Okay.
Chaos Spawn Roadshow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's super nice seeing the international events all pop back up as well. So yeah. But thank you very, very much, guys, for talking through your games and your insight. How do you both feel about your factions at the moment? Are you sticking with what you've been playing or exploring something new?
I'm sticking with Retribution for the moment.
Yeah.
It's Gorshade 4+1 in Retribution,
yeah.
largely, I think. Whether that's a Calissa and a Syria.
Yeah, I mean, Calissa just looks so good right now. I struggle to find a way not to kind of recommend her.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence with her. I've always had an issue with Calissa with kind of... Yes, she's got a very good gun. But it is bonkers.
It's bonkers. It is so ridiculous.
I don't know whether this is kind of like old Retribution, kind of like I don't know how to put it, like old hang-ups on Calissa where she didn't do an awful lot, but she's not answering the questions which I feel that Gorshade needs answering necessarily.
Yeah, she doesn't make that
interesting.
Which is my opinion. I know a lot of people are maining Calissa, which is again perfectly fine. But Retribution has always had certain problem matchups, which most factions do, and it's kind of a case of finding that extra list to go with either Calissa, Gorshade, or Assyria. Effectively,
I think Ret seems to be in one of the most exciting places they've been for an awful long time, where basically you can just pick nearly all of their casters and do something really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Where people are building lists to make sure, where people are building pairings to make sure they have a ret drop. Ret are scary enough that you need a ret drop in your pairing.
I'm not sure about a ret drop. I think a Risavas drop is probably what you need.
Quite possibly.
Arguably some of the best infantry in the game at the moment.
Goodness. The goodness are on the table.
Yeah.
So as opposed to legions.
I think largely you can get away with having a kind of a troll / Gorshade drop with a well thought, as in a Madrak 3 / Gorshade drop.
Yeah, I was about to say you need to be able to answer the lots of infantry, which is either going to be Madrak, Gorshade, and Cullis is making a bit of a comeback. So.
I think that going back sort of when I started playing, X many years ago, it was very much people would talk about, this is my Warmachine drop, this is my Hordes drop, because the depth of the factions was so much more limited compared to now. The factions were very much limited to these archetypes. I think it's hard to even say this is my Khador drop, this is my Ret drop, this is my Minions drop, because especially when adding the cross faction themes. There's so wide out a faction to do. I think you really have to start building your pairs, looking at archetypes. Okay, what are we going to do against an effective gunline? What are we going to do against an armored brick? What are we going to do against a strong assassination list? I think you need to sort of be building this in that kind of a mindset now, rather than I need an answer to deal with Circle. Because Circle can
I agree.
show you so much stuff.
It's
Yeah,
too varied.
that's actually a good point.
Yeah.
So are you sticking on minions, Jamie, or is it cycle to something else again? Or
I can't say that. I can't say I'm sticking on a faction on camera because that means I might actually have to do it.
At least by saying minions, you actually open yourself up to playing a pretty fucking huge plethora of options, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got quite a lot of things to explore with VOD still. That theme is super open and it's got a lot of really cool synergies in it that are yet to be explored.
Yeah.
I think as a minions player, a World War for food pair and a VOD pair is just a great starting block.
Yeah.
But there's still lots of ways to go for it. At the moment, I'm really just tinkering with Cold Grimmer and really enjoying that list and how it's evolving. So now, for example, I've dropped the Brigands, dropped the Bouncer. I've now got a Storm Troll in there, which gives Electro Leaps, which is hilarious on a Mountain King with Jackhammer, for example. Also means that the list is now randomly immune to lightning, which is sometimes relevant. There's so many little tricks and ways you can play with that to do it. So I'm really kind of mainlining Cold Grimmer now at the moment, and Rask is just keep an eye on, and then that might end up being the one that I flex to meet whatever Cold Grimmer isn't picking up. That's which is an interesting experience of this event, is actually looking at these pairings, looking at these things, going, actually, I really do fancy my off list into this. I mean, I think this is more me because I think Chris and Ryan are both very happy to charge in with their main lists, but I clearly not done my homework enough.
So in that vein, does your main list change at all, Chris? Then does Gorshed get a bit of tweaking? I know we talked about it the other week.
Yeah. So there was a large kind of consensus of kind of double defenders in Gorshed 4, and that's what I'm currently trying out. I do like the Nis Hunters, just A, because they're faster, and B, they do offer at least some skirmishing and less linearity for Gorshed 4. So obviously you've got CRAs and the bows, which are again incredibly accurate.
And they start at Rat 8 and 9.
Yeah.
So it seems okay.
But again, I'm tinkering around with kind of the make man, the Jack makeup. So the double Chimera High Hydra is basically there because Chimera's whole focus, obviously we've been going up defense against range attacks and magic attacks with every focus they've got.
And they hold on to it for Arcane Vortex as well. Yes,
correct. So that the Chimeras obviously can be effectively defense 16, defense 18 in a cloud against guns / magic. If you load them up, and the Hydra being a reliable gun that's holding its focus from turn to turn, which you're not having to fuel up. Because with kinetic battery, not kinetic battery, focus battery. I've been playing around a little bit more with the heavies. I think I'm running Phoenix Chimera Manticore off the top of my head now, just to have again another layer of hitting along with the double risk fast defenders and the wardens. I'm not overly sold on the executioner in the list. Again, tinkering, pulling him out and putting him back in and trying to fit a list.
As is in defenders, have you looked at Hypnos? Drop him a spell warded heavy in there with some funky abilities.
Spell seems unnecessary when you've already got Assyria.
Yeah, and you've got Arcane Vortex on a stick.
Yeah.
So I like Hypnos as a big fan of Ossian. He's very good with Ossian, obviously with Shadowbind on his gun. And I do like the Ghost Shot, but unfortunately you're not taking a lot of the tools which I like with Hypnos. So an AFG to upgrade his range to 12.
A range of 10 gun on a speed 5 heavy is a little bit sad.
Yeah, or even something like a Helena or an armor buff. Again, I can't even put Dauntless Resolve on him, so it's just not quite right.
Not enough,
I don't think.
I just want him to work somewhere, unfortunately, that's not just tied to Ossian, because my Ossian games have always been like one of those two games that if something goes wrong, you're left flapping in the wind. Game over.
Interestingly, in Forges, I think he's actually got quite a
Yeah, I guess with
significant,
Forges,
interesting game now.
Package, right?
It's something to look into because obviously one way would die is still to guns, which sounds weird under the feet. But with admonition, with the jacks, shield guards, hermit, there's a lot of defensive tools which you can hide him with, and especially with the tridents, being able to potentially move Ossian back towards the end of the turn or whatever. There are tools with Ossian now, which I was actually looking at one point to kind of just outshoot some things. So,
That makes sense.
but yeah.
Cool. Well, Evan, anything else before we wrap it up, or any questions?
No, I think that covers a lot. It's quite a detailed run through you guys gave us.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot for that. There's a lot of thoughts that went into your pairings and the playthroughs.
Yeah. So congratulations again, and I assume we'll see you at Walsall in next month, right? It's next month.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact,
Yeah,
it's the week after Sherwood, right? Are you guys both going to the next Sherwood as well?
Unfortunately not. I'm not at Sherwood due to childcare situations. And I'm unsure whether I'll be able to make the Steamroller. But if I might be helping out with Steamroller, running it, or in the reserve pod.
Yeah, that's fair one.
We'll see.
Well, hopefully we'll see you guys soon anyway. And yeah, well, thanks very much again, though, and congratulations. And catch you for another one shortly.
Okay.
Thanks
for having us.
Bye.
Fantastic. That was great.